let's just say in my case, it was a circumstance that I had no control over, right?
Yes.
A young athlete. And so basically just trying to navigate a space and using the emotions that I was experiencing, I poured those emotions into the game and they just happened to propel me. So the frustration or the anger or the hurt or whatever it was I was experiencing, I found that I got an actual positive outcome out of pouring the negative emotions that I was experiencing into the game.
Hi, everybody. Wonderful to have Delmont Madison on the show today. He's an ex-pro basketball player who's turned to coaching and helping elite athletes and other high performers improve and get the best out of themselves. I'm going to let him give a little trailer of his life story. We're in a very similar space, actually, which is great to talk to somebody who's doing a similar job to what I do. So, Delmont, fabulous to have you on the program. Can you please just give me a quick synopsis of how you got to this point?
Well, around the age of 5 or 6, I spent a lot of time in the city of Mobile, Alabama, where I was born and raised, participating in sports, all sports, within the park or city league that was available in that particular city. But I also spent the majority of my time operating in a space called the Boys Club. At the time, it was Boys Club. It wasn't Boys and Girls Club. But back then, the Boys Club for me was a lifesaver, which offered a lot of different levels of exposure, especially in sports where I played soccer, football, basketball, baseball, you name it. I was involved in it all. And essentially, I wanted to be I wanted to operate, or my dream was to operate professionally on at least on 2 of those sports. And so in Mobile, Alabama, I soon transitioned to Stockton, California, after taking a 2.5 bus ride at the age of 14, finishing my last 2 years of high school in a city called Lodi. And that afforded me an opportunity to accept a D1 scholarship offer at Colorado State University, where I finished in 1996, and leading over to an 11-year stint in Europe, competing at a high level in countries like Hungary, which is in Eastern Europe, Croatia, the capital city of Zagreb, Switzerland, Jordan, which is the capital city of Amman, and France as well.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I know Croatia has some very, very good basketball, and the whole old Yugoslav, Serbia, Croatia, Bosnia. There's some great basketball over there. In fact, isn't the San Antonio Spurs coach from Serbia, I believe, or Croatia?
I'm not 100% sure,
Yeah.
but it's real. It's obvious he brings a lot of international players off, so it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's Serbian or Croatian. So, brilliant. And then how did you kind of transition into the space you're in now?
Well, I mean, I personally had some experiences throughout, I think, my high school journey that raised a red flag for me, but I didn't realize at the time that I was really dealing with some of the things that now I'm able to put a name to. I was just I was playing the cards that I was dealt, at that time, and didn't realize I was going through a process that would be a pivotal or the most pivotal moment in my life. And so that was motivation after gaining clarity as an adult, that I wanted to do something to help impact athletes in high school and the college ranks, that would change the dynamic or the trajectory for the better of their journey. And that's how I was able, and that was the birth of the Athlete's Compass for me, which is a high impact life coaching experience designed for high performing high school and collegiate athletes silently struggling with emotional, performance, and next steps related stress. And there are 4 pillars that they'll walk away with through our program. And our program makes sure that the athletes will gain, without going into great detail, mental mastery. They'll build leadership skills, achieve peak performance, and definitely be ready for life beyond sports.
That's very interesting, because in my experience of having played myself, but also coaching so many elite tennis players to the very highest levels of the game, one of the things that definitely needs to fall into place is how they manage themselves off the court and off the playing field. Because if they cannot get that side right, it definitely impacts performance on the field. And I think it's an area that sometimes gets lost in the psychology of performing. And actually, if you get the stuff around it sorted out, a lot of the stuff within the performance changes and improves. And I know there are various athletes that I've dealt with that once we were able to sort their off-court stuff and put these things in the right places and get them thinking correctly about them and the people around them, that's when their best performances came to the fore and they really took off.
Correct.
Because, the margins are so small that, 1% difference is a pretty big difference at a very high level.
Correct. As you say that, there are 2 things that stand out in my mind that play a major part in the outcome of the lack of support or support that an athlete can eventually find in that space through their journey. In high school, for example, I think for most, this is just based on my experience and conversations with other athletes, I think it's extremely difficult, number one, to identify things when we are being impacted by off the court, distractions, for lack of a better word. And that could come within the family. That could come from relationships or tough relationships with your peers. And let's just say in my case, it was a circumstance that I had no control over, right?
Yes.
A young athlete. And so basically just trying to navigate a space and using the emotions that I was experiencing, I poured those emotions into the game and they just happened to propel me. So the frustration or the anger or the hurt or whatever it was I was experiencing, I found that I got an actual positive outcome out of pouring the negative emotions that I was experiencing into the game. And so our goal is to help athletes at a younger age, it took me becoming a full-fledged adult to really understand the picture, but getting them to understand while in high school how to navigate that space and to come from a healthier place in terms of the energy we put into the sport that we're involved in, as opposed to the negative space. Number one. And then number 2, I can remember vividly, there was really no one on the high school, collegiate, or even the professional level that sat down and actually had a conversation with me about what the realities of my circumstances off the court were, and to understand so that they can better understand how it's how the team and my personal progress or lack thereof was being affected by it. That never happened. So for me, it spoke to crisis.
Yes, and I think there's a huge value in a facilitator speaking individually with team members and then actually getting them collectively together and in talking about things, understanding that some of their problems are related and they're not the only ones who've got problems off court and off the pitch, and then finding solutions together and getting some tools from the facilitator, and that would make them a much more cohesive team, and therefore understanding each other better, there are not many teams, if any, other than a couple that I've worked with, that actually even look at this space.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's something that I definitely would like to do more of, because I know the value that there is there. And it's a space that is undervalued at the moment, and once that changes, I think again, any team will get an extra couple of % of performance out of their players and a better team cohesiveness.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. The bottom line, I'm sure, for institutions across the country is to compete at the highest level possible. And everyone wants to win. That's the goal at the end of the day. And winning meaning not just, as we see it, and I thank you for bringing us on to bring light of this, because I think it's a crisis that's not spoken about enough. And winning to the athlete, what we bring to the table is allowing them to open their minds and inspire them in a way to understand that you can do both. You can play and compete at a high level, but you can also focus on the areas that are, as it relates to your emotions, how you're going to transition, and who you are. How do you identify yourself outside of the game, and not having that be defined by how many games you win or lose.
Yes, and I mean, at the end of the day, everybody becomes an ex-athlete, and there's a lot of living after a pro career,
correct,
or a college career,
correct,
and it's important that people win in life as much as they win in their sport.
Absolutely,
and you can do both, and actually, it's much healthier to do both.
Do both.
And it's not as traumatic if you're really struggling with some issues outside of the sport. Because you're then having to kind of play despite what's happening and compete despite what's happening, and that's a tough burden to carry. Absolutely. And that's, I would say, when you often get behavioral problems, because something's got to give somewhere.
Absolutely. It's human nature.
Yeah.
There would be a deficiency somewhere. So that's why I think that it's important for leadership, when I say leadership, I mean coaches, as well as the athletic directors, as well as just the institutions as a whole that value the athletes and the impact that sports have on their institution. Yes. I'm sure we can name several ways on how it benefits them as a whole. But just being able to put those in place who value the things that we're speaking of today, and value the idea of forging relationships with coaches like yourself and myself and my partner at the Athletes Compass.
Yes. The last thing I'll say on this is really important for leadership to understand how much impact this can have on overall performance and in the memories and legacy that these kids will take from their program if you help them become more, for want of a better word, sustainable people.
Correct.
And it's a huge area that I think in time will become more and more recognized.
I believe it as well.
Brilliant. I'm going to hit you with 3 questions. And the first one is, which 2 people have influenced your life the most? And only one of them can be a family member.
Okay, I'll start with the family member. His name is Michael Madison. He's my uncle.
Okay.
And my uncle was my inspiration at home, because I witnessed at a very, very young age, around the time that I just fell in love with sport, with sports, which was probably 4 or 5 years old. And I noticed that he was a high performing athlete. I could see the resemblance in myself, and based on what I saw in my uncle, being family, that he was competing in high school. I was sitting at the stadium, for example. The stadium that I watched him in was a college-sized stadium in Mobile, Alabama, because the South in football
Yeah,
is
it's
like
huge.
a big deal. And
Yeah.
so his local high school performed at a college stadium. So I thought he was the man. I thought he was God. And so I would watch him, his body language, his demeanor and everything on and off the field. And then he became a semi-professional. I would visit my grandmother's house and see his trophies and track ribbons and the helmets, half helmets hanging on the wall. And so I really wanted to be him. And I wanted to stand for the same principles and values that he did within my family because I saw him as the leader of my family. I don't know. And then that carries over to what I mentioned to you in reference to the boys club. There was a gentleman, his name was Larry Dickens. Larry Dickens was so impactful on my life. I'm still trying to define how impactful he was. He was that figure because I spent more time at the boys club than I spent at home. And I had an opportunity to interact and engage with my peers that also was that shared in that impact. But he, to me, was someone that I saw from a professional standpoint. He represented, education. He educated. He represented someone that was well spoken, and I liked his style, his swagger, and he represented leadership outside of the home as well. And so, and to go even further, he was a baseball player at University of Alabama. So when you put all those things together, and you watch the way he moved and spoke to us, and he had a way that was extremely personable when it comes to how he engaged with the kids. And so Larry, to me, epitomizes that of what I see as a player's coach, so to speak. So whenever I speak through the Athletes Compass, I speak with the spirit of Larry in me when engaging to these athletes. And so that's what he meant to me.
Fantastic. So, I mean, this might sound a little dramatic, but do you feel like these two people saved you from a very different life?
Absolutely. I think they taught me the value of being a better communicator and being able to communicate as it relates to Larry, being able to communicate my emotions and being comfortable with that at an early age. But it didn't stop me from competing at a very high level and being what has been coined in my circle as being a dog, on the athletic field or court. And so I was very comfortable. That's something that I think is attributed to Larry, with being able to communicate my deepest emotions, but also give my all and compete at a very high level athletically. My uncle, the class and the dignity that he represents, and also the structure that he has utilized throughout his life in becoming an entrepreneur. And he's been in, let's just say he operates in the insurance space and developing his own company and brand under Primerica. And he has performed and transitioned from an athlete and performed in that space on a very high level for the past 40 to 45 years. And so those are definitely the two most impactful. In
Are
those.
you still in touch with both of them?
Absolutely. I just had a family reunion 3 days ago while I was side by side with my Uncle Mike, who is still impacting me today. And Larry, I spoke to him about 2 weeks ago because I wanted to get his perspective on and introduced the Athletes Compass to him. He's still to this day a part of the Boys and Girls Club in Dothan, Alabama. And I have since recently forged a relationship with the local Boys and Girls Club in Central Florida. And so I wanted to share that with him. And of course, reiterating the impact that he and the Boys Club as a whole had on my life. And full circle, I'm back working with them through the Athletes Compass in partnership.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, I salute you for that. That's great.
Thank you very much.
The second question is, what event changed the course of your life or totally shifted your perspective in a big way? I know as time goes on, there are different events that have big impacts on us. But if you had to look back and say, and each event that happens obviously is a catalyst to something else. But if you had to look back, is there one event that stands out, or one conversation, or some thing that really shifted your perception or changed your life?
Okay. There is one in particular, and this conversation or event involved my father. And the reason I had this conversation was because in order for me to navigate the emotions that I had been experiencing from childhood throughout my athletic journey, I needed to have that conversation with my father, who played a big part in that. And he helped me bring clarity to a lot of the things that I was experiencing in my relationship with him that poured into the game that I've been a part of since a very long time. And so that understanding and that clarity helped me better understand him as a man, and it helped me propel into my journey of healing. And throughout that journey up to that point, I reflected on in conversation how that experience with him negatively impacted my life on and off the court. And that allowed me to create a transition plan on what my healing looked like, and how I plan to help others that find themselves in that same space. So that, I think, was truly the birth of the Athletes Compass in terms of the impact that I plan to have, and the realization that I see being what I call a crisis that's taking place right now in athletes' lives.
Do you think that conversation had as much impact on your father as it did on you?
I do, because I think that conversation taught me that the act of sitting down with him, thinking that I was going to get the things that I needed to help me become whole, or at least start the journey. In the midst of that conversation, it quickly made me understand that it was just as much, if not more, about my father's healing as it was myself, because the fact that he wasn't fully healed and still dealing with things from his childhood is what fueled me in terms of moving forward and continuing my growth. And that allowed me also to be open to forgiveness, and just gave me better clarity on the actions. Oftentimes we pin people's actions on who they truly are, when a lot of time, more times than not, a person's actions or behavior, it stems from a story. And until we find out that story, we understand that it's not necessarily their character, it's the
belief system they're running.
Things that they're dealing with that they haven't been able to fully navigate yet. So they can only give you what they have.
Well, as we know, stories are very, very powerful, and you can believe any story.
Correct.
And people do create stories in their own head that they totally buy into.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't question those beliefs and stories, you can live with them all your life and never realize that you can change the story.
Correct.
That was very insightful. Thank you very much for sharing.
You're very welcome.
So I think you want to bring in your partner for the third question, which
Yes.
is basically what your current beliefs or superpowers are that serve you so well and allow you to navigate difficult and tough times.
Yes. Dr. Rabion Charles, our lead coach with the Athletes Compass, and 25 years of leadership coaching.
Hi, yeah,
Hello.
nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you.
In fact, can you just give a little rundown of your story quickly before we get an answer for this?
Sure. So happy to be here. Thanks for having us, David. So I am Dr. Rabion Charles. I have been I spent my most of my professional career working for not-for-profit organizations, and even more specifically, working in higher education. And as a result of working in higher education, I've had the opportunity to focus on curriculum development, and then do executive leadership coaching.
Brilliant. Okay. And how did you end up working together?
Yes. So Delmont approached me about the Athletes Compass and shared his vision for the Athletes Compass, and knowing his own story of being an athlete and a high performing athlete, and one who had multiple careers, and his love for young people and athletics. I wasn't surprised when he shared his vision of transitioning from his last career into to building the Athletes Compass. And so when he shared that with me and asked me if I would apply or utilize my professional experience with curriculum development and executive coaching to the Athletes Compass, I was thrilled and jumped at it. He threw a couple of stats in there too about what the research shows in terms of this really being an area of need that doesn't get the attention it warrants.
Which we spoke about earlier.
Yes.
So this question about beliefs and superpowers, are you going to answer from your perspective in what Delmont's superpowers are, or your own perspective as well, what your superpowers are? Or should we have both?
I think both, if that's okay.
Yeah, I would love to have both.
I love that. And so I will say that I think my superpowers are positivity and optimism, and being extremely solution oriented. So I'm one of those.
I would say that very enthusiastic as well.
I do get that. I get that, right? And so, and I would say, sometimes I've, just throughout my life, people have recognized my optimism and positivity. And I think sometimes it can be viewed that those would be synonymous with not being realistic or moving things forward. And so that's why I mentioned being very solution oriented is the other of my superpowers. Can be hyper focused on not focusing in on the problems before us, certainly recognizing and acknowledging those, but then figuring out how to push past and move beyond the problems or challenges that exist. And so that
I'd like to just put in a little story there.
Sure. Yes, I'd love to hear.
And what you're talking about. So when they're teaching racing drivers, and how to get out of trouble effectively, is, let's say a race car driver is going down and starts to go around a corner, and the car starts to lose a bit of control, sliding maybe off the track and into a fence or a wall or something like that. They teach the drivers to never look in front of them to the problem that's coming up, to actually look to where they want the car to go.
Yes. Yes.
And that actually gives them the best chance of surviving that and getting the car to stay on the track. So you would actually see race drivers where the car's going one way and they're actually looking another way.
Yes.
So I think that, it just kind of illustrates what you just said.
Absolutely. I think I've not ever heard that before.
You can use it.
I will. I know. That's what I'm telling you. I've never heard that before, but I am going to definitely use it because it perfectly illustrates what I was saying. I love it. I love that.
Yeah, because if they try and avoid the problem by looking at the problem, they hit the wall.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And once you hit it, you can get stuck there.
Yeah.
Right. And so
yeah, sorry, carry on.
No. I was just going to say, and so I, bringing it, to the Athletes Compass, I'm able to, Delmont has afforded me the opportunity to apply, those superpowers, if you will, in the development of the curriculum for the coaching practice. And so Delmont Superpowers, I would say he is he has an immense amount of empathy and love of people, of humanity. And so I've done work in the philanthropic space, and philanthropy, oftentimes people associate it with, and it's partly true, but go to money first, financial resources. But the true definition of philanthropy is love of humanity. And so that definitely is a superpower of Delmont's. He's able to empathize with people, especially young people and youth. I think he loves us older people too, but especially youth and young people in a way that is just extraordinary. And and that actually relates to his second superpower, which is being very introspective and reflective. He is, often, so we'll be in meetings. I'll just give you an example to illustrate that superpower. We could be in a working meeting with each other, and I will, I'll have like lots of audio wallpaper, I call it. The TV on, there may be, my phone is beeping, and I may be peppering questions or just completely thinking out loud. And Delmont will say, okay, so I need some time to hear my thoughts. I remember the first time he told me that, I was like, whoa, like that is, that, okay, yes. That sounds like a book title to me. Hearing your thoughts. And so yes, empathy and introspection are his superpowers.
I'm going to add one here because I think this is very underestimated, and I talk to athletes a lot about this, is tone of voice.
Yeah. Yes.
Very calming voice. Yes. Very calm tone. And I talk to athletes that when you talk to yourself in your head, if you can bring a nice calm tone, so if I go, God damn it.
Yes.
Or I go, God damn it. Same word.
Yes.
But one is not going to impact as dramatically as another. And that's just tone of voice.
Yes.
So say, like, even when things are going wrong in your head, if you can talk to yourself in a calm and a slower tone of voice as well,
yes,
that can also bring anxiety down.
Absolutely.
And just listening to Delmont, he has a very, very calming voice.
Yes, absolutely.
And a very nice tone.
Yes, 100% agreed.
Fabulous. So between the two of you, is there anything that you would like to add? And a last question I will ask you, and I haven't given you, and you can think about it because you're going to get to question me.
Yes.
But who I should get on the show next that you know. So, but you can let me know at the end of the show and even afterwards. But it's always a fascinating question that what people come up with, and I've met some very interesting people that way.
Love it. Love that question. Love it. We will.
Yes.
I know. I have a thought, and I'm going to keep thinking. But anything else? I can switch it. I'm going to switch it. If it's okay, I'll switch it back to Delmont.
Sure.
Anything else we want to add before you get peppered with questions, David?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So is there anything that if I'm going to ask you another question here.
Okay.
If there was one message that you wanted to put out to the world, what would that be? I mean, it's tough off the bat. If you can't come up with an answer for that, I'm more than happy, because I'm not sure I could answer that. I've just thought of that question right now, and I'm not sure I could answer that just bang. But I have an idea of what I would say.
To the athletic world,
Yes.
Okay, to the athletic world, I would like athletes, parents, and leadership in athletics to understand that there's a shift happening, and there's a shift happening because of individuals like yourself and individuals that operate within the athlete's compass that supports the idea of inspiring today's and future athletes to evolve in a way that is healthier, to evolve in a way that is successful, and to evolve in a way that is impactful, and not just impactful for the programs that they're involved in, evolve in a way that contributes to who and how they become what they dream of in society, and evolve in a way that positively impacts those closest to them at home as well. And what I mean by that is getting and taking advantage of the tools and the guidance that the Athlete's Compass, and even the company like yourself that you spearhead, and the resources that we both provide young and older athletes that could help them prevent some of the pitfalls that we fell into throughout our journeys.
Great message. So thank you very much for being here and for answering the questions so eloquently and openly. And I think I felt it was done very tastefully, because clearly there was trauma in your life. And without going into the trauma, you were able to show a pathway through it. And I think that was done extremely well. And yeah, as I said, very tastefully and very, very calmly. And that was wonderful.
Thanks for watching Locker Room Power with David Sammel. If you enjoyed the episode, hit subscribe and leave a comment on your favorite platform. See you in the next one.